we basically have the Naza up and running. Good evening YouTube. You find me in the garage again. Now a few weeks back I obviously built this little monster. It's the Hobby King S500, which is my new quadcopter, which I obviously broke down a hexcopter to make this. There is a 4-part series on that, if you want to go back and watch that. But this is the result of that particular build. So what I did say at the time is I would look and try and record more video footage of setting up the Naza flight controller, and there's been a couple of comments on that, so I'm going to try and go through it tonight and quickly do a setup guide. Now what this assumes is that you know about RC, so you know how to bind the controller up to a receiver and how to set a receiver into the flight controller itself, the Naza. I'll just elaborate on that. So obviously you've got elevator, aileron, throttle and everything else that goes with the receiver itself, and they have to go into specific ports with the Naza. I'm not going to go through that. A lot of it's self-explanatory. A lot of it will say on the actual receiver itself what the port is, and it will correspond with the port on the Naza itself. So what this is just a little quick sort of guide to go through how to set one of these up. I'll do my best to explain it and the pitfalls of doing that, and try and explain in layman's terms, which I totally understand, the basic setup and how to get your quadcopter in the air. So first of all, I've got the laptop by the side here, just there we go, and I'm going to have to move the camera around a lot, so I do apologise for any bad camera action that you're going to experience on this video. So I've got the Naza software booted up on there. Now this is available on the DJI site. It is the Naza-M V2 software. I say you can download it, so it's no big problem to get hold of that. The first thing I'm going to do is, I've got that up and running. At the moment it's got a skip on the bottom there, and that's because we're not connected. So basically your USB connection goes into your LED at the back there, and then we want to add power, so let me just do that. So there we go, make sure we deemed us right around. Okay, so we have power. Now going back to the laptop, and I'll bring you over this way to make it a little bit easier. Going back to the laptop, you can see now that basically we have, and let me just zoom in just a little bit to make it a little bit easier for you, we basically have the Naza up and running. Now at the moment we've got an indication light just there. That tells me it's actually communicating with the Naza itself. Right, perfect timing really. So you will get announcements with this software, and this is to upgrade to the latest firmware. I'm not going to do that right now, but it's good that that's come up, because that is something I will do in the future. So I'm just going to close that off. But again, you can update the firmware. Now be aware, if you update the firmware, that corresponds the application with the Naza controller. So if you've got another Naza controller too that you're running in tandem, you'll have to do it on both. So just close that for now. So basically what I've got at the moment is very little going on. We're connected. My parameters are set up already, because obviously this has been bound in and it's all been set up already. So one of the first things to get sorted there is your controller. Now I'm using the DX8, but you can use all sorts of DXs. I've got a channel allocated already, and that is what I call my TBS Discovery. Okay, now when you set this up and you create a new channel, let me just try and get you in a position where you can see that properly. When you create a new channel, do not create it as a helicopter, and this sounds a bit alien because people think of these as helicopters. They're not. Create it as a plane. Okay, so as you can see there, my model is a plane. So I'm just going to go into the main screen there, and we're going to look at, first of all, servo setup. So as you can see from the software at the moment, everything's pretty much in the green, and if I move my throttle up, okay, center point is set green anyway. But what you have to do is, in your servo setup, okay, before I go any further, let me just put one thing straight. When you've bound your receiver to your transmitter, go in and calibrate. That's what's one of the first things. Should have mentioned that beforehand, but make sure you go in and calibrate. So go into your basic settings, go into RC I believe it is, and calibration. Just there. Okay, calibrate there. When you calibrate that, it will center all your sticks to your transmitter, because obviously when you bind it, there's no calibration between your transmitter endpoints and also your endpoints there. So I'm not going to do that now, because as I say, what I've done is already bound it, it's already set up. I don't want to mess any settings up, but make sure your first thing is to go in and set that up. We'll come back to this screen later because there's some important things in there as well. So going back to your aircraft, okay, you obviously want to set it for whatever aircraft you got, whether it be a hex rotor, whether it be a quad, and beware, because there are different configurations of quad as well. You've got quad 1 where that's your front motor, and in my configuration I've got that sort of quad setup, and that's the way I want to fly it. Okay, so going back to the beginning again to your servo setup. Now when you go into, I'm trying to get this on camera, it's not easy, please bear with me. Okay, when you go into your servo setup, about there should do it, you have got travel. So the moment the travel is on throttle, so if I go down and click on throttle, I can now move down and I can move that up and down by using my jog wheel there. Okay, now what you'll need to do is you'll need to basically look at the parameters on here. So in this case, if I put the throttle all the way up, okay, we're reading 1,000. Okay, it may not say exactly 1,000 as I said in my last video, but as near to 1,000 as you can get it. And if we go down again, we're at 1,000, so that one's pretty good. Okay. Now if I moved it up to the top and that wasn't at 1,000, what I can then do is take my controller here, okay, and I can move my jog wheel to make that value there change, and that will correspond with this, and you'll see it moving. Okay, so you do that on your throttle, you do that on your aileron, your elevator, everything else. So what you want to try and get is as near as, damn it, these on 1,000. Again, you may not get that. Okay, you'll get close to it, but you may not get that. Now once you've done that, pretty much you could fly it if you wanted, but I wouldn't advise it. There are a few more things to go through. Okay, now I've got my flight mode set up as its free position to work on, as you can see there, channel U, and that corresponds onto the Naza itself. So my flight mode, okay, moves with U. Okay, now the other two here, you can use your gimbals, you can do all sorts of things with them, but I always use my aileron, elevator, throttle and rudder and U. Now if we go back to basic again and we go on to RC, what you can see at the moment is my control mode switch is on failsafe. That's because I've activated my flight mode to position 3. If I take it back to position 2, it's in altitude mode. If I go back to position 0, or yep, 0 on this one, it's GPS. Now most of the time you're flying GPS. I sometimes fly in altitude mode. Failsafe is a must, and I'll explain why. So when you set up, in my case, my flight mode, again, if we go back to the travel, let's just get you in a good position. You have got, okay, in my particular case, auxiliary 1. Is it? No, sorry, telling you a light's gear. Okay, so if I flick it, you can see there it's on the gear channel. So I've set it up on that. So basically, where we set up our rudder, throttle, everything else before, as you move these values, that will move the slider there, and I will explain. Okay, so at the moment we're on GPS. Okay, if I go on there, you can see as I'm moving my gear travel, it's gone off GPS. Okay, so again, you set your gear channel up, or whichever channel you use against this U parameter. Okay, you set that up and you set these. Okay, and again, as you move through the spectrum, you can use your travel to give you exactly what you want. Okay, hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, leave a comment, I can go through this again. But basically, you always want to set this up. GPS, altitude mode, it's your choice. You can do either. One's pretty much sticks in a GPS locking coordinate, the other one is pretty much manual. Do what you want with it. But if you ever get into difficulty, something happens, you're unsure, you lose signal, whatever it may be, that's your get out of jail card. Okay, that will, in this case, in fact I'll show you what it will do. Okay, failsafe settings, it will pretty much stop in the sky, it will wait for a signal, and I think that's 15 seconds I think it says, can't remember off the top of my head now, but it waits for a signal. If it loses signal, it waits to see if it's regained within 10 or 15 seconds, whatever it's set up to. It will then go to a height of 20 meters, or come down to a height of 20 meters. It will travel to the point where it took off from, and it will land itself. Okay, and that depends on a couple of parameters, which I'll go through in a minute. But basically, that is a self-landing system. So if you lose orientation, you don't know what's happening, you lose the quad, you lose your hex, whatever it may be, that is your get out of jail free card. That will get you back home again, it will land itself. Now, that all depends on your GPS. Okay, so if we look there on the top, we've got a GPS receiver. Okay, and obviously we're plugged into the LED at the moment. When you first start up your quad, you will find your LED will flash red, and it will flash red probably 3 times and then go green, red and green. What you're looking for is it to lock onto GPS coordinates, GPS satellites. Now if you've got a Fat Shark headset, as I have, it will show you how many satellites you're locked onto, but you will always want this to stop flashing red and go green. That means it knows exactly where it is, it knows its GPS coordinates. So if you use the failsafe system, this one here, it will go back to that original starting position within a meter. Okay, so that is a pretty good thing to have. It's something I set up on all my quads that have it. Another setting that you may be interested in is IOC. As I fly using mainly FPV and line of sight, and I fly helicopters, I know my orientation now. I understand orientation, I can work with it. Okay, but for those that are a bit amateur, if you turn the quad round and it's facing you, everything's in reverse. Now that can be alien to some people that are not used to flying helis as I am. So what you can do is use Intelligent Orientation Lock, or IOC. Now, I haven't got this set up at the moment, but again, you can use your X2 channel, which we saw earlier, for that. Okay, again I haven't got it set up, but you would tick it and you do exactly the same thing again. You would set your parameters up on your controller to have home lock or course lock. Course lock will make sure whichever way it is round, it goes in the same location every time. I think I've got that round the right way. Okay, but that will lock it so you can turn it all the way round, and your stick going forward will always mean your quad goes forward, goes back will always mean goes back, and on and on. Okay, so that is your orientation control. Voltage, maybe something you want to set up, and again I'm skipping through these. Please, if you need more information, let me know. I'm using a 3S LiPo, okay, but you can always choose anything under a 6S. Okay, your choice on that one, doesn't really matter. Calibration, you can do that with a full battery. Plug a full battery into it, calibrate it. I don't tend to use it myself because I've set load limits there, but you can use that. It's not something I use. Limits, leave them alone. To be honest, your max height is 2,000 meters, max radius 2,000 meters, and that's your ceiling and distance from where your quad can actually travel to before it stops, and then won't let you go any further. Motors, pretty much leave that as standard. What that basically is when you bring your two sticks together on your controller like that to take off. I won't do it because I don't want it taking off. Spins them up and has parameters set around that as well, so taking them back out again, we'll switch it off again, or if you don't take off within, I think, 5 seconds, it will actually cut them off too. You can change that, and it gives you full descriptions here of what that will do by changing them. Your choice again. A lot of quad things are personal choice. So I think I've covered quite a few things. One thing probably to go over is your GPS. So you saw earlier my NASA GPS receiver is on top of the quad. It's on a stalk on this particular one. So what it's showing you there is your center location. So your controller, your not your receiver, sorry, your NASA controller should also be in the center of the quad. Now you set your X, Y and Z coordinates up pretty much following this. Now be aware, if you've got your, as it shows there, your controller just there and your GPS is further back, that is a negative number. I made this mistake at first, this is why I'm saying it. You measure it in basic centimetres, and as you can see there, my X coordinate, so going across, is -4 centimetres, okay, because I'm at the back of the quad. My distance there is what we got, -3 for my Y coordinates, sorry, for the X coordinates, and for my Y, which is from the, now let me get this right, from the base of the controller to the GPS, okay, not the base of the machine, the base of the controller to the top of the GPS receiver, that there is 17 centimetres. So be aware when you're setting these up. If you've got it bang center, they can all be 0. If you use it slightly offset, as I do, then you have to change those parameters too. And I think that's about it. Okay, just quickly scanning through. So at the end of the day, basically what should happen is, as you can see there, once you've set it all up, you should be able to see your movements, and when you let go of the controls, apart from obviously the throttle, everything should go back to green, which is your center point. Okay, if you've got that going on, you're not far wrong. Okay, some of these pitch and gains, again, something you can play with really. I've set mine to default of people that have got very similar machines, and it seems to work okay for me. I've not gone too depth into these, but you can basically mess about with these, change the parameters, and see if something works better for you. But for me, this flies fine. Okay, so I think that's about it, guys. Now I know I kind of went through this quickly, and you know, a lot of it is stuff I've learnt, a lot of it is trial and error, a lot of it is probably different to how you would do it. If you're watching this an experienced person, you're probably going to shout at me and put comments on the screen and say, no, you're doing that wrong, totally wrong. But this works for me. Again, with, you know, anything RC, it really is up to the person setting them up, to how they want to set them up. I'm just scanning through while I'm talking just to see if there's anything I've really missed. But it really is how you want to set them up. There are hundreds of videos out there, but this will get you flying, and this will, I know, will get you flying because it gets me flying. Again, you could find a much better way of doing it than me, but it works for me. So that's what I've used. And again, it's come from just trial and error really. The same with the helicopters. I used to fly barge years ago, and now I'm completely flybarless on flybarless controllers. And again, it's all trial and error setting them up. But anyway, I hope it's been slightly useful and not too much of a waffle. Please leave comments. Please, you know, if there's anything specific you want to know, I'll help out where I can. If anybody is interested, I'm in the Peterborough area, so you know, I'm quite welcome to speak to people. And if you like what I do, please subscribe. I know everybody hears that and goes, oh god, not another subscribe, but you know, I'm not in it for the money, I'm not in it for the prestige, I'm in to try and help people out. And as you can see, the channel is very random and there's a lot of random stuff on there. So if sort of that random stuff is the sort of stuff you want to see, let me know. And there you go, back to the quad. So, as I used to say in all my old videos, fly and enjoy, and I mean it. Flying should be enjoyable. If you're not enjoying it, then you're not going to stick with it. So there you go. Hopefully it's been a bit of use to somebody.